The barbell bench press, the king of all movements when you're in high school. Nobody cares about anything else you do, but they do want you to answer one simple question: how much do you bench? Here's the thing: for most of my life, I've been doing this movement completely wrong. Or if we wanted to add nuance, maybe I'm not doing the movement wrong, but I'm certainly not doing it as efficiently as I could. And hence the reason that even I was in the military, even when I played high school football, the most I was able to push on, the barbell bench press was about 275. And it took some friends that I had who were former collegiate athletes and just really strong guys who kind of explained to me how they accomplished their bench press numbers, which were over 400 pounds, and then explained to me that maybe I was being a little harsh on myself because, to be quite honest, a person who weighs 150 pounds pushing 275 is very clearly pretty dang strong for their size. And I needed to understand that, numbers like above a 350. Yes. I mean, I think most of us recognize anyone benching over 350 is pretty freaking strong, but it's all relative to your weight at the same time. So I've taken the time to, now that I'm really deconditioned and like I feel like I can barely bench the bar at times, I'm taking the time to do this movement the way that it was taught to me, to try to like catch myself when I'm doing wrong and then pay attention to where I'm struggling in the lift. So that way I understand where to make improvements in order to increase that bench press in the future. All right, y'all, let's jump into the actual activity. Safety is key. The first thing I learned here is that if you're not setting yourself up to be safe, if you're benching by yourself, as some of my friends told me, you're kind of an idiot. You have to be safe with this. And you can see that it's painstaking to go through this and keep adjusting and trying to figure out where to put your safeties. And there are shortcuts, guys. You can get magnetic things that they only cost a couple of bucks on Amazon, and you can stick them on your rack, and then you'll know exactly where you are doing your bench press. But right now, I'm trying to make sure those safeties are catching the bar, so in case I do fail, I can get myself out of this without risking great injury or even worse, death. And it is painstaking, guys. It does take some time, and I'm definitely going to order the magnetic things to kind of put on my racks. That way I remember where the exercise, where to set them up at is. But it's super important that we're being safe when we're doing this exercise. And this is the first thing, if I had to be honest, I was being an idiot about. I was not doing what I was supposed to be doing in terms of setting this exercise up correctly. And thankfully, I never paid like a great cost because of this. They say every year 3 to 4 people die from complications due to benching, mostly without help around them, okay? I'm sure that it does happen in gyms as well, but mostly probably at home where they fail to set something up, and as a result, they pay a heavy cost. And then a lot of people get injured bench pressing, like, tearing your pec, hurting your shoulders, even your lower back can get injured from bench pressing. So it is pretty important to make sure you're doing this exercise correctly. And this is advice that instead of preaching to you, I really should have been preaching to myself for many, many years. The main thing I'm trying to accomplish here with this warm-up is really range of motion and just making sure that I'm coming all the way down and touching my chest. And to be honest, if you look closely, I miss on one of them. I don't take it all the way down. And that's just a good indicator and a good reminder to kind of keep yourself to the objective, to the goal. Make sure you're actually doing the exercise correctly, and don't get too cocky because you're moving absolutely nothing in weight. In addition to range of motion, it's just important to really get blood to the muscles and to just kind of help with the prevention of injury. I think those are things that often get overlooked, especially by someone like me that just thinking about it, like it's just a barbell. I'm not moving that much weight, and I'm not so strong that where my first lift is what I felt like is going to like negatively impact me. Like this isn't going to be some great strain on my body. Well, it didn't take me long to start getting like shoulder impingements and stuff like that because I wasn't warming myself up correctly. And it's something that I'm now taking the time to make sure that I 100% do. what's crazy to me is that I've done this lift for 20 some years now. At this point, I'm in my 40s. I started off when I was in high school, probably early high school, actually, probably even to be truthful about it, somewhere in middle school. And for the longest time, I didn't realize like little bits of information that are so obvious once you learn them, such as like why do people arch their backs on the bench press? I thought it was solely to restrict the amount of like distance they have to travel with the barbell, which is partially true. That is partially why they do it, especially when you're dealing with very, very heavy, sets. I never saw the point of that because I never felt like I was lifting all that heavy to need that. But what I ended up finding out is that it also has something to do with like actually conserving energy. And it has to do with actually unracking the actual lift itself and not expending a lot of energy doing that. And it's really about like your scapular muscles and your shoulder and like kind of how you unrack the bar. I didn't know that, to be honest. Like, I mean, I guess everybody misses a little bit of information. And apparently I missed a seminar on that one, guys. Some things that I'm doing now that I'm restarting this whole thing again. Number one, I'm trying to do the best I can to slow my reps down a little bit, make sure I'm coming all the way down to my chest. And I might even start, incorporating some pauses in terms of like how I'm lifting on this, just to make sure that I'm getting the most out of this. And you don't need a lot of weight to make it difficult. I've had some friends that are very strong and heavy lifters prove this to me, that they can get me to a volume type workout to where I'm not lifting jack crap. And they'll do things like crazy eights where you put 4 plates, like four 2.5s, 4 5s, 4 10s on the bar, and then you do a set of 10, you take a plate off, you do a set of 10, you take it off, so you get to the bar, do a set of 10, then you add a plate, you add a plate, you add a plate, you add a plate. Like you can get through volume to where you're just done, or you can do things like really come down, pause the rep, and really make it tough to push the ball, the bar back up. There are different ways of accomplishing this stuff, and like they're getting me to understand that like training for things such as endurance, training for things such as strength, training for things such as essentially muscle. Like if you want to look aesthetic, it's have some overlap. Of course, all these things have overlap between each other, especially if you are designing your plan with really really solid foundations. But at the same time, like there are little tweaks and little subtleties to each of those things that make them completely different. And it's funny because now that I don't have that much strength, I'm basically starting off like I'm a newbie again. I'm learning so much more than what I knew when I was actually able to lift pretty heavy, especially relative to like what my weight was at the time. It's interesting. Like, the longer you live, the more you learn. All right, guys, listen, if you would love to join the community, I would love to have you. I just need you to hit that button up there and subscribe. Also, if you're looking for another video to watch of mine, YouTube is telling me that you would really, really enjoy this conversation where I talk about kind of my biggest health anxiety, my biggest anxiety around fitness. Check that video out right there, guys. It's my most revealing in terms of like internally what's going on with me. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out of here.